Claire. Hey, Rebecca.
Hello.
Nick said he's running about 5 minutes late, so just waiting on one more and then we'll get started.
I'll go away for a minute.
Hi, Dustin.
Hi.
Okay. We don't have a secretary yet. It's our first meeting, so I'm going to record this if that's cool with everyone, just so I can get all our minutes for later. And we have everybody. Nick will join us in a few minutes, so we'll get started. So hello, good afternoon. Welcome to our first meeting of our Housing Trust Fund. So I'm Michelle Tulo. I work in the Mayor's office as Housing Justice Director. And this Housing Trust Fund has been over a year in the works, maybe 2 years in the works. Been a whole team of people trying to get this about. So we're really excited to have this starting. So thank you all for being a part of that. So the way we're going to go about today, we'll do some brief introductions so y'all can introduce each other on the board, and then we'll get into kind of electing board positions and then going over those documents we sent, the Declaration of Trust, which will be kind of like the bylaws, the things that create this organization. We'll review our code of ethical conduct, and then we'll wrap up with just giving you an overview of the next steps of what's moving forward. So during the meeting, Kate is our attorney, Kate Hedgeman, so please feel free to jump in at any point if there's anything I'm missing or misspeaking on. We're brand new, so the cool thing is y'all get to be a part of starting something fresh, but at times you might need a little bit of patience as we figure everything out, and always welcome for your feedback. So I'll get started real quick. As I said, I'm Michelle Tulo, work in the city. I'm an urban planner. Moved here in May to begin this job. Most of my adult life is in New Orleans doing urban planning, and we're excited to be here. So our board members, we just want to give a super brief introduction about yourself, whatever you'd like the other board members to know about you. And I'll start off with, let's go to Tom.
Hi, I'm Tom DiPietro. I'm the president of the Common Council here in Hudson. And before that, I was chairman of the planning board for 2 years. And I care a lot about housing in Hudson and trying to preserve what we have.
I'll pass it to you, Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca Wolf. I have been living in Hudson since 2005 and was on the Common Council over the last 2 years, and I'm not on the Common Council anymore, but was part of the team that wrote this grant that made this Housing Trust Fund possible. So I'm super thrilled to be seeing it happening now. And I'm also very committed to housing in Hudson.
Awesome. Angelique.
Hi, I'm Angelique. I live in Hudson for over 10 years now. I work with HCHC, lead organizer. Pretty much I want to see, people have places to live in Hudson, and lately it hasn't been like that. So I'm for the people,
Thank you. Usha, are you still with us?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Usha. I've been a resident of Hudson since 1986. I've had a business here and I love the city. I've walked the alleys, the streets. It's one of my sidelines to see what's going on here. And I'm hoping to preserve what is here and to allow the older people to enjoy a good life in the city of Hudson.
Thank you. Dustin.
Everybody, Dustin, I am an associate professor of epidemiology at Columbia University in the city. I've lived in Hudson. I lived in Hudson since 2019, and I'm really dedicated to neighborhoods, housing, and those type of issues, which are also issues I study academically.
Thank you. And then Nick.
Apologies, I'll get my video up in 1 second. But my name is Nick Saccos. I am currently serving as the interim executive director for the Hudson Housing Authority. Before that, I served as the director of the Hudson Youth Department. And I think through my work with the youth department, I became aware of the housing crisis in Hudson and the difficult position a lot of folks living in town are experiencing surrounding housing. And so I'm excited to be a part of this committee.
Awesome. Thank you. So that's our board. And Kate, if you just want to introduce yourself real quick.
Hi, I'm attorney Katherine Hedgeman, and I will be, at least for the foreseeable future, counsel to the Housing Trust Fund, and will help you navigate some of the policies and procedures we have to put in place.
Awesome. Thank you. So yeah, this is our board. Really excited to have you all. Thank you for giving your time. So we'll begin by nominating officers. So the positions is the president. The president is basically going to preside over the meetings, kind of control the pacing, and will be the one signing documents, etc. The vice president, who would just perform the duties in the absence of the president. Secretary, whose main role is going to be keeping minutes during our meetings. And then our treasurer. So most financial kind of tracking of money and stuff I'll be working on, and Sarah Black will be doing bookkeeping from HCPA. So the treasurer has been doing more of another set of eyes overlooking major financial things. So it doesn't have to be anyone who's like, you know, super mathy, but and Kate, if you want to jump in at any point.
Yes, so this is your first organizational meeting, so you need to call the meeting to order and call the roll of all the board members present.
Okay.
And then you have to take a motion to elect the whole board first, and then the board will elect the officers.
Okay. So I can call the meeting to order. So officially beginning now, 3:08, and do a roll call of the board members. Lucia Berlin.
I'm here.
Tom DiPietro.
Here.
Dustin Duncan. Angelique.
Here.
Rebecca.
Here.
And Nick.
Here.
Okay. So then now we're going to ask the board members to, sorry, what was it, Kate?
That's okay. If we have any volunteers for the officer positions, you should discuss that first. And then if you need to make a formal motion, you can elect people after that.
Okay.
Say that again, if she has any volunteers.
Yeah, so out of the positions for president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer, if anyone wants to volunteer for any positions.
I'll volunteer if there, it doesn't matter what position.
I'd be happy to volunteer for either vice president or treasurer, whichever somebody else doesn't want to do.
I nominate Nick for president. Nick? Wait, did he just jump off because of that? No, here he is. Oh, there he is. We can't hear you.
You're muted.
Let's see if anybody else wants to volunteer for that position first before we second that nomination. Would anybody like to volunteer for the position? President?
Can I second the nomination?
Yes, you can.
I second it.
So if we have a second, then do we do a vote or what? Or do you want to discuss more?
As long as Nick doesn't object, it sounds like he's objecting, so.
I'm not objecting, because I want to help out the group, obviously. So I would, if, like I was saying, if anybody else wants to do it, I would love to have somebody else do it. But for the time being, if there's no one else, I would accept. And then I guess what we could do is, since I am serving as in the interim role as the executive director, and I think the new executive director, who will hopefully be coming on this spring, will also come on. We could give them the option of taking over the chair role down the road. But I'll accept for the time being.
Okay.
Okay, so you have a motion from Council President, you have a second from Rebecca Wolf, and you just need to do an all in favor.
Okay. So all in favor of Nick being our president?
Aye.
All
Aye.
in favor?
Hi.
Okay. So we've got Nick as president. Thank you. So then Rebecca mentioned vice chair or treasurer, and then Angelique offered whatever. Anything, Angelique, out of these positions appeal to you? Vice chair, treasurer, secretary?
I'll she said she liked the vice chair, or did she like the treasurer better?
Or treasurer, she said either.
I'm willing to take whatever. I want to learn, so
Okay.
it doesn't matter to me.
Well, treasurer is not a good position to learn. That's a tough one.
So then I'll stick with the vice chair then.
Okay.
So I make a motion to propose Angelique for vice president.
Seconded.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second for Angelique to be vice president. We'll do a roll call vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Okay.
opposed?
Any opposed? Okay, Angelique is our vice chair.
And I make a motion for Rebecca Wolf to be our treasurer.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Let's see. The nomination, second. All in favor of Rebecca being treasurer, say aye.
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 And anyone opposed? Okay, Rebecca is our treasurer. So then last we have secretary.
Now, the secretary always scares people when it shouldn't. So most of the meeting minutes, we'll record, and or Michelle will help, get those together. The secretary also signs resolutions and different things, and the president can as well, but we like to have two people. So that's why, the secretary might be called upon to sign a resolution, or any correspondence maybe of the board. But it's not as, you're not responsible for all the meeting minutes and, all that by yourself.
I will confess I was terrified of the secretary thing. So if somebody would prefer to be treasurer and I can be secretary, that would be great. I was sort of thinking of asking, like, can we get somebody to do the minutes? Just because but anyway, I'm flexy is what I'm saying. I can flex between any of these roles.
Yeah, we'll probably record and I can write up the minutes, but yeah, we do need someone to, be around to also sign.
I will be treasurer if Rebecca takes the secretary job.
Okay.
All right,
Do we
so
need to do
scratch that.
a motion to rescind the previous motion to rescind the nomination for her, Rebecca, as treasurer.
Okay,
Second, yeah, I can second that.
okay. So can we do this all in one or do we do individual votes?
So I think your motion is to remove Rebecca from the treasurer position and make her secretary.
Okay,
So have that
Right.
as,
okay. So motion was to send Rebecca from treasurer, make her secretary. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, so Rebecca is our secretary.
and then
if
you
someone
need
wants-
you need a motion to elect the treasurer again.
Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to elect Tom DiPietro as treasurer.
I second it.
So all in favor of electing Tom to be the treasurer, please say aye.
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 And any opposed?
Okay.
Okay, we have our board. Thank you. So then moving on to the next item of business is discussing the declaration of trust. So I sent that to y'all to look at a draft. Kate and I worked on that based on looking at other sample bylaws from other trust funds and also looking at the requirements that Enterprise had and the proposal that we provided and the Common Council's resolution. But this is really the document that's creating this. So want input from everybody if there's anything you want change or questions about. I will say on the first page, under definitions for affordable and rental housing, we have it's no more than 50% of area median income, and that should be 80% as per the enterprise guidelines for spending the funds.
And I think the resolution to create the fund said 50.
Mhm.
So the council might want to revise that resolution.
So what's the best way to go about this, Kate?
Well, I mean, Enterprise wants 80% of the AMI, and as long as you meet that, you're okay. Maybe the cities of Kingston, and maybe Tom knows, intent was to make it 50%, in which case you'd have to meet both requirements, and that's okay. Or they could amend it to match Enterprise's requirement of 80% of the AMI.
What does the city of Kingston have to do with it?
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant Hudson. I'm in the wrong municipality. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
I thought you were saying that this
No,
template.
no, I misspoke.
Or
I
something.
misspoke. I'm headed down south, but not that far south.
Gotcha. I mean, so it sounds like it just needs to be a resolution before the council to amend that, and then it's good, right?
If that's their intent, yes. I mean, they could have intended 50%, in which case that's what would govern.
By they, you mean enterprise?
No, the enterprise grantee agreement requires 80% of the AMI.
Right.
But the city resolution creating the trust fund, the council's resolution says 50.
Right.
So is it the council's intent?
I think that that's because I believe our council resolution was like prior to a full development of the trust fund. I mean, or of the concept, or basically, I think I just didn't know that Enterprise had that specific requirement. So that's why it's that. So it could definitely be amended.
Okay.
Yeah, because otherwise you're going to be directed to do 50% because that's what your municipality has passed.
Yep, got it.
Okay. So we can work on that resolution, but then we'll make that edit on here. And of course, as we go through programs, you can choose, we want it supposed to focus something below 50%, but just gives it some flexibility. Because it's the county's AMI. I guess, Kate, I meant more like, what's the best way to go about going through the declaration of everyone or getting input? If you have any suggestions on that.
Well, I'm hoping that everyone had a chance to read it And if there's any questions, to bring those up. I was kind of hoping we would approve that today. Even if there's some small edits, we certainly can do those. But, that's your governing document that actually creates the trust fund.
So I have a question just about the number of board members. It says 7 to 9 members. Is that, that's what we've got and that's what we'll have? Is that, like, I'm just curious how that number was arrived at.
So what Michelle and I did is basically propose the declaration as other municipalities have. It's very similar. So things like that, you certainly could change. It doesn't have to be 7 to 9, but an odd number is usually good. And, you want a board, 5 or less is pushing it because you'll have quorum problems. So I think most boards, you really do want 7 to 9 members.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have 6 now. We know that HHA director might change. Will change, and we are looking to expand more members onto the board as we get some more representation and some different backgrounds.
I have a question when you're done.
Yeah.
Now, another thing I seen on there, it says that it helps low income, right? Now, is that just low income or does it go above low income? I seen it said, hold on, because I'm trying to look at it at the same, was reading it earlier as well. Affordable house. So when it states in there, right, affordable housing, right? Now, are we talking all of affordable housing to who are we exactly? Like what, like not only low income, or is it also middle class, or how is it defined is what I mean?
Sure. So I can tell you that the enterprise grant funds, so most of the seed money is coming from enterprise, and their funds must go to households who are at 80% or lower of area median income. You could say that if there was donations to the trust fund, they could go to a higher median income, but we're saying 80% or below.
Okay.
Yeah.
Michelle, if you want, can I share my screen? Okay.
I can also share mine if you want to.
Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what we were talking about too. We changed it here, but we got to change it here as well to 80%. And whenever you're looking, whoops, what did I just do? Here we go. Whenever you're looking at a document like this, you always want to go back to the definitions, because that's where affordable housing, and when we use that term, what it means. So just something to keep in mind there. As you move through this, and again, Michelle and I kind of worked on what we thought would be a good general purpose of the trust. Again, you have input on all of this, but it's just proposed to kind of get you going. And then here, going down through section 4, Board of Trustees, Michelle and I thought we would start with initial terms of 2 years. You can shorten that, you can lengthen that. Same thing for officers. We thought 1 year would be good, just because, we don't want to overwhelm people. So these are a couple areas too that you should think about and make sure that, you agree, you want to have those be the length of your terms. We do have a description of the officers and what their general roles are. Generally, board members, trustees won't be compensated, but if there's expenses for something that you need to do on housing trust fund business, we certainly could reimburse those. Paragraph on vacancies and resignations, so that what happens when a board position on the board becomes vacant. What happens when someone resigns. Removal, and you might want to talk about removal a little bit. Most of the time, removal only comes up if someone like stops showing up, right? They're just not participating and you want to replace them with someone else. So you might want to talk about, if you as a board have a requirement, if we're going to have 10 meetings a year, you have to be at 8 or something like that. Something to think about there. Different kinds of meetings. You'll have an annual meeting where you'll propose and show your activities for the previous year, including your financials. Your regular meetings, Michelle suggested, it looks like every other month, Michelle, 6 times a year. But again, you might have business and you might want to make that grant and you might have to call a special meeting in between, right? And then of course, when you do have meetings, and this is kind of an interesting, the Housing Trust Fund is an interesting animal in that you are housed under a public agency. So from that perspective, you're pretty much stuck with all the compliance that public agency is also required to do. And so you will have to have certain quorums at your board meetings. They will have to be public meetings for the most part. And, you'll have committee meetings as well in between. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But you might want to, think about, and I know Michelle asked you to, your meeting schedule and what that's going to look like. If it's going to be a, third Tuesday of the month or whatever it is you pick. But we do need you to settle on, regular meeting dates because we have to publicly notice those meetings. And it's easier to do that when you have a steady schedule. So we also set this up with some committees. And again, you might decide you want more. You really are going to have an executive committee, which is your chair, your vice chair, your president, your vice president, your secretary, and your treasurer. You're going to have a finance and administration committee, which will not only oversee the day-to-day finances of the trust fund, but also the grant process and distributing of funds when you get to that point. I also gave you authority to have other committees as you wish. The only caveat to that is you have to have 3 directors for that. Now, this one too, this section 5 is another area that you really want to think about. And these are some of the areas that we've proposed that other housing trust funds across New York and even across the country, we looked at different states as well. Some of the areas in which they make expenditures. And you're going to have probably a few meetings, discussion on what it is you want to fund and decide how you're going to do that, which will help me then translate that into grant guidelines and reporting procedures, policies and procedures, so that when you make your grants, you can make sure that the organization you're giving it to has been vetted, that they report on the use of the money, and all of that. When you grant public funds, it's really important to do that. So this isn't even a limited list. It's just, like I said, some proposed topic areas that other housing trust funds have given grants in. It's also compatible with, your grant from enterprise and what you can use the funds on, right, Michelle? Yeah. So something to think through there.
I have a question. Is it okay to ask a question at this point, or
Sure.
should I do that?
Sure, go ahead.
I was just curious. I know, like the salary for the housing justice director, in part comes out of this fund, and I just wondered if that needs to be indicated there.
No, because this is a governance document for the board and the fund itself. So it's the budget you're going to adopt that will create Michelle's salary.
Okay, so it doesn't, I just didn't know if it needed to be, if it was not indicated that was like a possible use.
Well, this paragraph here about is your grant funds, what you're going to spend grant funds on. Okay. She is overhead, right? You're gonna come up with, hopefully, your finance folks in combination with Michelle, a budget. You know, what are your operating expenses? You have her salary. You should have directors and officers insurance so nobody gets sued and loses their house. You're going to have bookkeeping requirements from, I think Sarah is going to help with that. So you're going to have an agreement for that. So you have to come up with an operating budget besides, you know, what you're going to fund. And then how it should work is to, you know, your grants committee, or if you're going to do it as a full board, would get together and say, you know, and I'm just, you know, for ballpark numbers, here's the 3 things for this year we're going to fund. We're going to focus on these 3 areas. And then the board as a whole, in connection with the finance committee, would make a recommendation of how much you want to allocate to each of those grant areas, right? So then you adopt that budget, and then you would have grant proposals in each of those categories that you would review and approve or disapprove if that's what you want to do. That's probably the best way to do it. So you're going to be adopting all of this, the budgets, the grant allocations, all of it, because you're still really in startup mode.
I get it. It was a category error on my part.
It's okay. That's all right.
And yeah, under like F, it says the trust can employ agents and advisors.
Yep.
Cool. Thanks.
Yep. The other power that you have, and this might come up with some sort of donations in the future, is to accept and receive property. You know, you can take other grants, you can take, you know, stock donations, you know, that kind of thing. So this gives you the power to pretty much accept real property, personal property, grants, anything like that. If you're going to, we would have another discussion regarding that, of course, on a case-by-case analysis of whether it really makes sense to accept that gift, but you certainly can. Here, it does say reimburse HCDPA for their services. I think there's 2 ways to do that, and if I were you, I would have either an MOU or an intermunicipal agreement setting forth exactly what you're going to pay them for and exactly what they're supposed to deliver. That's important to have. You do have the authority to borrow money. I don't think you'll be doing that anytime soon, or really would have a need to. You can do joint ventures. You're able to participate in partnerships and work with people to create programs and to allocate funds.
I had a question about also I don't know where it is exactly, but it says somewhere we have the power to dispose of property as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think it says something about how that's in accordance with like the same, whatever the HCDPA also,
yes,
whatever their rules are about that. And I just was curious because I know that HCDPA passed a resolution basically just like confirming that the disposition of property is always in keeping with the mission of the HCDPA, which is, you know, to serve like low-income residents of Hudson. And so I guess I'm just really wanting to confirm that that's also in this, that it would be built into this document as well.
What this refers to is really not that.
Okay.
So because the HDCPA is a public authority, they have a full-blown disposition policy, or they should. Let's just leave it at that. And there's certain rules that, you know, public authorities can, and how they dispose of it, when they dispose of it, that you have to follow. And that includes, you know, having an appraisal, having ABO approval, having all these things, right? So I put that in there because you're housed under that agency. And I don't want to get into you as a board and a housing trust fund. There's no need for you to adopt a disposition policy because the agency has one. So I think what you're talking about is more of a policy declaration, rather than the nuts and bolts of the legal process of what you need to do before you sell property as a public authority.
Okay. Gotcha.
Let's see. Okay. The fiscal year of the Housing Trust Fund will be January through December 31st, unless anybody can think of a reason not to do it that way. Sometimes it's June to July, or excuse me, July to June. So we recommended that it would be calendar year for that. This is a provision here that's in most public authorities and other nonprofit organizations, where the organization itself, the corporation, the trust fund, indemnifies and defends you and its employees, its directors, officers, and employees from any legal actions. This paragraph really is no good unless you're carrying directors and officers insurance, which I've recommended to Michelle that you get. Because while they have to indemnify you, if there's no pocket, if there's no money in the housing trust fund, there's nothing to indemnify, pay a judgment, pay your legal fees, anything. So that's why you really should have the insurance. And I can make some recommendations of the insurance levels you should have as well. I'm not sure if the HDCPA has directors and officers insurance. They might, but that wouldn't cover you. You'd have to have your own. Let's see. These are trust funds. So you do, as a board, have a fiduciary duty, a legal duty, to make sure that not only are the funds expended in the context of what the grant from enterprise intends them to be spent on, but also in the context of expending public money. And I know a lot of you have some experience with public money expenditures, so it's probably not new, but I say that because we need to be very careful about conflicts of interest and money going to related persons to any of you, related organizations to any of you. We need to be very careful not to do that. Okay. Any amendments to this, of course, you can make over time. If you say, hey, listen, this, section really doesn't apply, or we should change the wording, you can always, change that with a resolution at a board meeting if you need to. And that concludes the summary. So it's a lot to think about. And I think that you should have some discussion now. And if you can't, cover everything or resolve everything, that's okay. We should just hold off, approving it until you do. So I will be quiet for now. And
I have a question. You were saying that if, like you were saying about the money, that you have to be careful that it doesn't go to like another organization. So you're saying that you can, out of the trust fund, give money to another organization as well?
Yes, so there's different ways you can expend your funds. It may very well be that let's say you wanted to support rental assistance. And why reinvent the wheel with your own program? If there's a rental assistance non-for-profit out there, you could fund their program, and those funds could be used by them to, run that program. So that's a possibility. I'd like to stay away from, making grants to individuals and things, because it's always tricky. It's not that you can't, but I think that that's a discussion we would have to have when we come to it. So. Anything else? So what about the board terms at 2 years? Is that too long? Is it too short? Is it just right?
That seems right to me, 2 years.
I think that's fine.
Yes.
And the officers would have a 1-year term.
And Rebecca, you asked about the number of board members. Did you have any other thoughts on that?
No, I really didn't. I think I just was,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's fine. 7 to 9 sounds good.
And again, I think, you know, this is just the first declaration that you'll approve. And I know, and it's probably going to be in this section here on expenditures, you might be okay with this, or there might be something else that you decide to fund or you think should be another category, and you can always add that later. Because when you go to make the grants, whatever they are, we need to go back and say, do the trustees have a power, and that's derived from this document, to fund that particular project? So, you know, we're all new at this. So as we move forward, it might be that, you know, you're going to approve expending funds on a particular topic, and we have to go back and put it in here because you didn't contemplate it before that. So that's okay too.
Could we?
So
Oh, go ahead, whoever that was.
sorry, Nick. Your name's Nick, right?
No, I'm Tom.
Tom, sorry, Tom.
Okay.
So anything that gets spent or given out to any organization or anyone in particular, it has to go in front of the board and be approved.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
just wanted to clarify it.
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, when we get this all built out, really, there'll be grant applications, people will apply, but they'll apply in the areas that you've already, you know, set forth that you want to fund. And then those grant applications can either be reviewed first by a committee, you know, maybe you have a grants committee that makes a recommendation to the full board, or the board would have to meet and review, you know, the applications and then, you know, make decisions. So.
Okay, can we remove in A subsection 2, the word only? And would that allow us to sort of be more flexible in what we fund?
Let's see.
Funds from the
Funds.
trust. Yeah, you're right there.
Okay.
Can you just read the whole section or read the part that you want to change?
Well, I'm just wondering if you could put funds from the trust shall be used for the following authorized purposes and remove the word only. This way you've established what we're about, but we also leave open the possibility of other grants. Or do you think it's better to wait and then amend it?
Well, that's the thing. I don't, and the way that this works, I think we should leave it, and that you as a board make a policy decision later. Let's add this category. We will fund something like this, because otherwise, if you take only out of there, while it might seem like, okay, we can fund anything in addition to this, you really don't want to go there. You really want to keep it narrow to what you as a board have said we're going to fund. So I would leave it in. And you can amend that at any time, you know, to put whatever you'd like there. But at least the board had a policy discussion and it wasn't a knee-jerk reaction to a grant application, right? That's the whole point for that. Because a lot of times you'll see, and Tom, you're probably no stranger, you know, somebody will want to do something specific and they just say, well, we can, when the board and or whoever's in charge really hadn't contemplated that and had a real discussion about whether you really want to do that or not. So, you know, I think this nails it down. And if you truly do, the board will vote to change it and to make it so.
So I make a motion that we accept the declaration of trust unless there's further questions.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion to accept the declaration of trust. All in favor, say aye.
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 I got Tom, Usha, and Rebecca. Dustin, are you in favor?
Yeah, I said,
Okay. And Nick and Angelique, sorry.
Aye.
I will also say aye. I do want to, I've gotten to read most of it in a pretty detailed way, but I do want to review it a little more. I guess the good
Yeah,
thing
I
is
wanted
if
to
we
as
did
well.
want to make if we want to make any amendments or anything like that, we can always do that in the future as we get going. But I don't see anything glaring that pops out at me
Okay.
right now. So yes, aye. Sorry, that was a long aye.
Cool, thank you. And that was Kate, that was with our agreed to change the 50% to the 80% on page 1.
Correct.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, we have our declaration. So we are now a trust fund, I think, right? Cool, thanks. Next item was we're going to review the code of ethical conduct.
So I drafted this for a lot of reasons. And as I mentioned, you're still under the Urban Renewal Agency, you're housed there. They should have their own code of ethics. I don't know if they do or they don't. But we're going to have our own code, and and I'm going to be a stickler for this because it's very important that we avoid the appearance of impropriety and self-dealing, with organizations and, people have connections to other people. You are really going to be considered and treated like public officers. And I know for some of you that's probably new. So I wanted to kind of lay this out, what's expected and underscoring the confidential nature of, financial information. Obviously, if we're talking about it in the context of a public meeting, it's fair game, but you need to be very careful that you're not disclosing personal financial details of individuals or, things like that in a public meeting. And there may be times where, we have to consult as attorney and client as the board, and confidentiality in that respect is paramount, because if discussions happen outside of that, now, you've breached your fiduciary duty, and, the whole idea of confidentiality and conflicts of interest and avoiding them is really to foster an environment where people can speak freely and ask questions. And once you take that out of, or you violate confidentiality, it's a real problem, because then people won't feel that they can discuss, things or ask their attorney a question, anything like that. So it's very important, we try to stay within these guidelines. There is a code of ethics, I'm sure. I haven't looked at it for the city of Hudson as well. And like I said, you are considered really to be public officers and trustees of this public money. So, that's just another reiteration of some of the things, you see here. So I thought it was important that you all reviewed this and approved it, so that you knew, what's permitted and what's not. And if you ever have a question, you certainly can ask Michelle, you can ask me, pertaining to conflicts of interest or, confidential information that, because of privacy laws, we can't discuss in public, whatever the case may be. So any questions on this?
Then next step, I would just need to collect everyone's signatures.
And something to think about too, you might not have any conflicts of interest as we sit here today, but as you get into the grant making process, we just want to be careful that, if there's relationships between any of you and any of the grantees or anything like that, that we discuss that, up front, and if necessary, apply the proper recusal, procedures to votes on things that you shouldn't be voting on, things like that. So just keep all of this in mind as you move forward.
So obviously, let's take myself as an example. executive director of another organization that may very well be involved in, let's say, a real estate transfer or something, HCDPA or something that this board would have involvement with. Obviously, if that's the case, I recuse myself from votes and conversations regarding that. Should I also just like send out a little conflict of interest waiver form to the board and to you, Catherine, just in terms of getting that all out in the open early on? Does that seem like best procedure?
Well, I think we don't have any property as the trust fund. So if it's HDCPA and they're going to sell a property to the housing authority, I don't think you have to worry about that for these purposes.
Yeah.
But if the housing trust fund was going to give, $50,000 as part of the grant process to, HAHA, that's something that you would definitely have to recuse yourself from. And we really would want to consider, what that looks like. But as long as the independent directors from you approve it, it should be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I guess just sounds like the same. I'm a board member on the HHA as well, so I guess that it's just the same. Like I just need to recuse myself for any.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to be a common occurrence in Hudson that there's all these. But yeah, I mean, we would just in that case have a discussion. But I guess the public perception is what the board would need to weigh when you have 2 out of 6 members and a grant is going to that organization. What does that look like? So we would just really need to put it in the minutes exactly why and recuse people who we need to recuse and do the best we can with it.
And I'll say too, like I've looked at the boards of a lot of housing trust funds and they're a little different than some other typical boards in that you want to have people on the board who have interests in this work. And, usually you have housing authority people serving and others. So it's, we don't have 9 people in the housing authority, but it's just a little different in the nature of it. But yeah, so if anyone has other questions after today, feel free to follow up as well. So then, yeah, if you want to fill this out and you can send it to me, or also if you don't have a scanner or printer, let me know. We can come to my office or I can find you and we can fill it out. Anything else on the code of ethics? Okay, thank you. So then our last few minutes, I just wanted to give an overview of what's coming up in coming weeks.
I'm sorry, Michelle. Did we actually approve it?
Oh, I didn't know we had to do that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead.
I make a motion to approve the code of ethics.
I'll second it.
Okay. And all in favor to approve the code of ethics, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, we have a code of ethics. Thanks, y'all. So just wanted to walk you through what's coming up and discuss a meeting time. So next thing we have to do is approve resolution, create the bank account. Right, Kate?
Yes, sorry about that. I put myself back on mute. Yes, I'm going to draft an actual written resolution for that, Michelle, because you're going to need to take that to the bank.
Okay.
And what, and I guess, Tom, you can weigh in too here. Who do you want to have signature and accessible? Like who should we allow to sign checks and all of that? Because they're going to want that in that resolution and give you the authority when you go to the bank with the resolution to do it.
Well, I think we definitely need 2 signatories. I know that in an audit recently of HDC, they were faulted for having a single signer.
Tom, can I just ask a question, or Tom and Michelle? So Tom, are you on this board as yourself or as the president of the Common Council? Like, is this a thing?
Oh,
where-
am I ex officio? That's a good question. Michelle?
Well, I mean, and what I'm asking is also like when you're not, or let's say in some world you are not the Common Council president. Are you still on the board, or is it the Common Council president that's on the board?
That's the
Let
same
me
question, I think.
pull up the resolution because I think he's an appointed member. Or let me see what the resolutions.
Yeah, so Nick and Tom were not nominated by the HCPA. That was part of our proposal to Enterprise, had two appointed members from the Common Council and from HHA Executive Director.
So they are voting members. Everybody always does confuse ex officio and really what it means. You know, it'd be one thing if the mayor said to Tom or any of the mayor's appointees, you know, I'm going to put you on the board ex officio, meaning I want you to be, you know what's going on and participate, but no vote. In this case, I believe the resolution as well, and I'm trying to find it, appoints
Yeah, it
Tom.
does.
Yeah, so he is a voting member. Let's see.
So he's here not as Tom, Rebecca, but as Common Council.
That's right. So please refer to me as president.
So then back to the signing for signatories. So we need two signatories.
Yeah, it should be two, and I think it should be you, Michelle, and the president. Or-
Okay,
Is that
unless,
okay?
For internal controls purposes, I think you might want the treasurer, the president, and Michelle to have signing authority, but two of you have to do it at the same time. Like,
okay,
yeah. All right.
And I know that's what our procedure is at HHA, is that to have those two sides of it too. So it could work with Michelle signing and either one of us on the board, but it wouldn't work with just the two board members. It has to be those, you have to have that redundancy or whatever you would call that, of the board and the director.
okay.
So, and I think that's smart to have two, just in case somebody's on vacation or whatever else, to make sure that checks can be signed if they need to be.
And I think, Michelle, with the expenses, and we'll have to get into procedures, but, the expenses should always be approved by at least Tom or the president if one's unavailable, you know what I mean? So there's gonna have to be some procedures there too, not only to the check writing and signing, but the approval of the expense, right? So there needs to be some of that kind of implemented here.
And shouldn't we also have a,
Procurement policy?
yes, that's what I was just gonna say.
Well, do we fall under the city's procurement policy?
Technically, you fall under the CDPA's policy, but I've not seen one. I can't vouch for it. So yes, we can have our own that would be just like you would use for CDPA too. Hudson CDPA. I always get it messed up. But yeah, you could have your own procurement policy.
Okay. So then we'll make that resolution for next time so you can create the bank account, and basically that allows Enterprise with all the seed funds, and they're waiting until we have a bank account to drop it into that. And
What's interesting, Michelle, is I just took a look at the resolution again, and it does say, it gives the three levels. That the council says households earning less than 80% of the MRI are considered low income. Very low income is households that earn less than 50, and extremely low income earn less than 30% of the AMI. So based upon that, I don't think you need a change. I think they're just, setting forth what they consider to be, those levels. So I think we're good because it does say 80% is one of those levels. Okay.
I'm just confused because wait, so on this new declaration, it says 50%, right?
Right, but we're changing that. That's what we were
Okay, so we're
talking
still
about.
changing it. I thought you were saying that we didn't need to change it. Got it.
No,
We
she
don't
said
need to
the
change
council.
the city resolution like we originally thought. That's what I was saying.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, that'll be our next step, is that resolution, and I'm gonna also prepare some next time we meet, just going over more about what the trust fund is, some of the background, give you all some more information on it. So I can give you some stuff to read ahead of time, and then we can just go through that and give a kind of a timeline of what's coming up in terms of, we'll be making grant guidelines, creating an operating budget, and then how we're gonna go about creating a program budget. And you know, you all have input on what you want that process to be like. So this meeting is a little more of the dry stuff. We'll get a little bit more into the meat of things coming up. But before we go, I know it's 4, but real quick, just wondering if we can figure out a time to meet. If not, we'll go to email for that. So anyone have like really strong preferences?
And I would mention that the executive order is up April 15th, I believe. So you're back in person unless the governor says
Right.
no.
And, yeah.
So I want to make a proposal that might be crazy, but just knowing that the people on this meeting in particular, like just looking at at who's on right now, a majority of the people also are always in attendance at HHA's monthly meetings. HHA has a public community space located obviously in the biggest affordable housing development in Hudson, and we have just invested in the state-of-the-art camera and microphone for our community room to have these meetings. Would there be any wisdom in pairing these meetings on the same night to try to have less meetings every week for different people to go to, and like one right before or right after the other, maybe a break or something like that? And then we can just do all of that public meeting due diligence and have a lot of the same people, not have to have multiple meetings per week or month, if possible. Just an idea.
Yeah, it's only a burden to you and Rebecca in the sense of you two have to attend both.
A long time with no dinner, but you know.
The only other thing I'd be just wondering, if they're back to back, if one, it means that one of them has to end on time, which, or they, you know, they have a hard stop. I don't know if that's difficult.
That would be the difficulty. Yeah.
Yeah.
What time is the other meeting? Your
Those are
meeting?
at 6 o'clock on we just changed it. Rebecca, is it the 3rd Monday?
I don't remember.
I believe it's at 6 o'clock on the 3rd Monday of the month.
Correct.
And so I don't know if they could be 4:30 meetings or something like that to give us an hour and a half, or 4. I don't know. It's just, and it may not work, but I just thought it might be an idea that could kill a few birds with one stone.
I like that idea. I do.
The hope is too that maybe you might, for this board, not need to meet necessarily every month as you get rolling. You know, you might need that 60 days to come up with, okay, we're going to approve these grants, right? And you want to make the most out of your time. So it may very well be that, you know, we could be very careful about how many meetings we're have and try to have everything teed up. So literally it's, you know, yes, you can have whatever discussion on the grants that you want, but at least you would have all looked at it and probably been on board with what you're going to do right before the meeting. So it's kind of like boom, 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 you know.
Fewer billable hours too. Sorry, Kate.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Dustin. If you want, we can
Thanks, Dustin.
continue the just schedule. I can do an email and have discussion. We can figure that out. I'm fine with that idea, Nick. Just want to run it by everyone else, their availability and stuff.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
You probably too, Michelle, should get a couple quotes on insurance. If you want, I can give you some recommendations on that, just so
Okay.
the board can begin to discuss that as well.
Okay.
Because that's really important.
Okay. Gotcha. Anything else?
I just wanted to say hi to Usha. I'm extremely excited to see you here. I've only ever seen you in your shop before, and
That's where I am now.
oh, are you there? Okay. Well, anyway, it's great to have you.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we adjourn? Right? Do I have to call that?
Motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
Okay. Well,
Seconded.
thank you all. Thank you all very much for your time. And yeah, I'll follow up with some emails. with
Have a
next
good day.
steps.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.